So the first thing that we need to we need to understand is that what we are seeing in John's vision in Revelation is all metaphorical language. It is things that are happening in the spirit realm. Okay, that is very, very key to understanding what is happening in Revelation. Okay, so John tells us multiple times he's in the spirit. In the spirit, he is seeing things that are happening in the spirit realm. Now, Hebrew readers, the Jewish people, they would have understood this right away, because that's how they thought. They thought in symbolic language and metaphorical language. It's just the way they thought, okay? They had a very different culture than what we have. It is our Western minds that, in the way we think in our culture, that we want to take all this and turn it into something physical, something that is really physically happening. And this is the reason why we have this huge disconnect with all these people, premillennialists, who they say there's no way any of this stuff has ever happened, because they don't understand that this is metaphorical language. It is what is happening in the spiritual realm. Okay, now I know a lot of people will hear me say this and they'll be like, no way, that's wrong, Blue. So I'm going to give you a bunch of examples. I gave you some of these examples last week, but I'm going to give you a few more. Okay, so here's some examples of metaphorical language that are in the Bible. Okay, so here's the first one in Revelation. I believe it's Revelation 3. Where Jesus says, behold, I stand at the door and knock if anyone hears my voice, and I will open the door and come in and dine with them. Okay, so everybody knows this verse, right? So have you ever thought, when you hear this verse, that there's actually a physical door somewhere, that Jesus is physically standing in front of a door, knocking on the door? No. We understand that this is metaphorical language, that Jesus is saying he wants us to seek him. He wants us to listen for his voice and to have a relationship with him. Here's another one. Okay, in Matthew 16, when Jesus tells Peter, I will give you the keys to the kingdom of heaven. Do you think that he was actually holding this ring of keys that then he handed to Peter when he said that? No, nobody thinks that. They understand that Jesus was speaking metaphorically, that he was saying, I'm going to teach you, I'm going to open up your mind and your soul and spirit to understand the things of the kingdom. Okay, so let me give you some even better examples. All right, so this is we talked about this last time too. This is Joseph in the Old Testament. And if you remember, when he was young, he had these two dreams. They were prophetic dreams. In the first dream, he saw these sheaves of grain, okay, right there. And he saw all these sheaves of grain that belonged to his brothers, and they were bowing down to his sheaf of grain, okay? Then he had another dream where all the stars and the sun and the moon bowed down to him, okay? So then we learn that the interpretation of these dreams is that in the future, because these are prophetic dreams, in the future, of course, Joseph is going to become second in command of all of Egypt, okay? And so all of his family and his brothers are going to bow down to him because they are going to be under the authority of Joseph, okay? So, but now, does anybody think that these sheaves of grain actually, there's really physical sheaves of grain bowing, or that the sun and moon and stars actually bowed? No, because we understand that this is metaphorical, prophetic language. And now, see, what premillennialists do is they take all of the imagery that's happening in the spiritual realm in Revelation, and they think that it's supposed to be physical things. So if Joseph was thinking like a premillennialist, he would say, okay, well, I'm not going to believe this stuff ever came true until I actually see some sheaves of grain bowing down, or until I see the sun and the moon and the stars actually bow down to me. That my dream didn't come true until I see that. Does that make sense? Do you see what I'm saying? Let me give you a couple more examples of this. Okay. So speaking of Joseph, remember when he was in prison in Egypt, and the Egyptian Pharaoh had this dream that disturbed him. And in the dream, there were 7 fat cows, and 7 skinny cows came out of the Nile River and ate up the 7 fat cows. And then he had the other part of the dream was he saw 7 very healthy grains of wheat. And then these 7 spindly grains of wheat came and consumed the healthy ones. And so he was very disturbed by this dream. And Joseph was able to interpret the dream for him. And the interpretation was that they were going to have 7 years of very good harvest. And then after that would be 7 years of famine. And God gave him this dream to warn him, you need to be storing up food for yourself during these 7 good years. Okay, so now if you think like a premillennialist about this situation and this dream, then what Joseph and the Pharaoh, they would say, okay, I'm not going to believe that this has come true until I see 7 fat cows and 7 skinny cows eat the fat cows. That is the only way that you can interpret this dream. That's the only way that this can be true. I won't believe it's true until I see that happen. Okay, so that's what premillennialists are doing with this metaphorical language, is they're trying to turn it into something in the physical realm. It doesn't work that way. Symbolic, prophetic, metaphorical language in the Bible, it's things that happen in the spiritual realm. Okay, so 7 years of good harvest don't really look like 7 fat cows. 7 years of famine don't really look like 7 skinny cows. It only represents those things in the spirit realm. Does that make sense? Let me give you one more example and then we can move on. All right. So if you were with me when I was going through Daniel about a month and a half ago, some of the prophecies in Daniel, King Nebuchadnezzar had this dream that was interpreted by Daniel. Okay, and so in the dream, he saw this big, huge statue. And the statue was made out of all these different kinds of metal. So his head was made out of gold, his shoulders and arms were silver, his torso was bronze, his legs were iron, his feet were iron and clay. Okay, and so the interpretation was that each of these different kinds of metal represented a different empire. So it was a prophetic dream about these empires that were going to be in power after Nebuchadnezzar, after his kingdom was over. And so if you see this, and all of it came true, but if you interpret this in the premillennial way, then Nebuchadnezzar would not believe in any of this until he actually saw the physical statue. But there was never a physical statue. It was all representing something else. So that's what we have in Revelation. We have what John is seeing in the vision, all of these things in the spiritual realm, and they are symbolizing, representing what's going to happen in the physical realm. And I'm going to show you how it's very, in my opinion, very clear that all of these things are talking about when Jerusalem and the temple were destroyed in 70 AD. And that is exactly what had to happen when the 7th seal was broken, to break the contract between Satan and humanity. Okay, does that make sense? That is so important. You can't understand Revelation unless you understand this.